What's up, everybody? Damon Hatfield here with Per Schneider. Big Nintendo news today. Time to cue the Ron Paul gifts. It's happening. Nintendo is finally dipping its feet into smartphone gaming. They've partnered with DNA, big mobile game developer publisher, and will be bringing their IP, their characters to smartphone gaming.
Yeah, really interesting development. Of course, we've been talking about Nintendo and their approach to not want to be publishing into the mobile kind of ecosystem for a while, and we've always said it's just a matter of when, not if. And like this announcement was timed right after the release of the new 3DS in the US market. Majora's Mask did really well, the units are selling, but they're not lighting the world on fire. And I think Nintendo has just come to this point where they have to recognize that there's lots of money being left on the table on mobile platforms.
For sure.
And if you look at kind of the games that Nintendo has experimented with over the last couple of months on the 3DS specifically, I think they've been really telling. I mean, think about Steel Diver launched as a free-to-play game, relaunched.
Yeah.
There was Pokemon Shuffle, very traditional mobile game where you either wait to play or you pay to not have to wait to play, and Rusty's Real Deal Baseball. So they've experimented with games that are all but mobile, but on the 3DS with a much smaller audience.
And they also have Puzzle & Dragons Mario Edition coming out.
Right.
Which Puzzle & Dragons is a free-to-play mobile game, although it's not DNA, it's a different publisher. But that's just them again, sort of like trying to figure out how it's going to work for Nintendo on smartphones.
Yeah, and I think the biggest, the big worry and why Nintendo didn't embrace iOS and Android before is, consumers thinking that they don't need to buy a 3DS or a Nintendo, whatever the new device, NX, whatever it's going to be called, or a Wii U, right? That you can just use your tablet and play all the Nintendo games. They want to make sure that people don't think that way. And so it sounds like the strategy is to build a cross-platform plan with DNA, right? Seems like DNA are more experts in kind of creating services and community tools and kind of like a network than actual game development.
Yeah.
So that's definitely a big part, I think.
It's interesting that you say a crossover plan because they also announced they're already working on their next dedicated gaming console, codenamed the NX, which some people wonder if that might stand for Nintendo crossover.
Right. Yeah, I mean, if you just look at the little kind of diagram that they provided with the news, right? There's this program, and then you have all the different platforms. You have this NX, you have the Wii U sitting next to it, the 3DS sitting next to it, the PC, and the mobile platforms and tablets, right? It sounds like Nintendo is going to take what Club Nintendo was, make it much more of a community tool, maybe mix in a little bit of that Miiverse, right? Like being able to own a player and their passion for Nintendo characters across all these different platforms. That sounds like the direction for this, rather than, hey, let's just take, New Super Mario Brothers and port it over to the mobile platforms.
Yeah, they stress they're not just going to be doing straight ports, and instead building games specifically with smartphone in mind, so that, things that make sense and that will feel good on that platform.
Yeah, I'm really happy with that. Some people disparagingly say, "Will we see, an endless Mario run or something?"
Which I don't even think that sounds kind of cool.
But I mean, we've seen from a lot of mobile games that you can pull off endless runners that are very, very different from a traditional Mario game, right? Like they can be really, really fun and a different experience. And so, will we see a full Pokemon game, like a deep RPG on mobile platforms? Probably not. I think they will use games like Pokemon Shuffle and other Pokemon-themed games as kind of like what they call the bridge or the upsell to a different experience that does require buttons and a stick and
Plus, turn-based games work really well on mobile. So, Fire Emblem or Advance Wars, those could work really well. Puzzle mastery games like Pokemon Troze would be a perfect fit.
But also think of the games that Nintendo made in the past that were truly mainstream because so many people the world over had Wii's and DS's, right, that have kind of fallen by the wayside.
Yeah.
Think about Brain Age, right? Like the brain training game, they had mainstream success, and I believe their success was only limited by the number of platforms that were in people's hands. We don't have that problem with mobile and tablets. Exactly. Everybody has them, right? Or take Nintendogs, which, that game spawned an entire wave of copycat games on mobile platforms. Isn't it crazy that Nintendo doesn't own that market anymore? So
there wouldn't be Imagine Hamsters if there weren't for Nintendogs.
Imagine Hamsters.
Initial reaction from Nintendo's investors was positive. Their stock went up 25, 26% shortly after the news.
In the US,
they've,
right,
they've
when
been,
it
they've
started
been
to trade
wanting,
here.
yeah, they've been wanting Nintendo to go mobile for a long time.
We're assuming, once the Tokyo Stock Exchange opens, we'll see a similar jump in
Yeah.
stock on Nintendo's side. I mean, it's a big deal, right? Nintendo buying a chunk, investing in this mobile services company, them getting a smaller portion of Nintendo, over percent of Nintendo ownership. It's a crazy deal. It's kind of surprising that they went with DNA.
Yeah, they're not the biggest. I think they are a Japanese company, but not the biggest mobile publisher. I think that's Gree, another Japanese
But
company.
perhaps that's where Nintendo saw the opportunity, right? Like, these guys are not the ones who are leading with software and who are rocking it with kind of like their titles. That's something Nintendo can bring. Nintendo will bring the brands and hopefully some of the development oversight. It sounds like both companies will work jointly on development, so it's not just Nintendo's teams creating this content. But it's a big deal, right? This could be a new era. In the end, I think gamers will win out if you still keep on getting your Xenoblades and your Marios and your Mario Sunshine Galaxy, like bigger full-fledged games, but you're also getting the smaller experiences that expose players to Mario, Link, Zelda, Smash Brothers, Metroid. Then that's a good thing, right?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Bear.
Cool.
It sounds like Nintendo wants to start getting its smartphone games out sooner than later, so hopefully we'll have more news to share with you soon here at IGN.